What we're kind of dealing with here today is a three-pronged update on things because, well, we're into probably the toughest of the tough situation based on all of the developments right now, but we're going to get clarification on a couple of these things, especially what we're going to be starting off with here is the GiveSendGo, okay, because everybody knows about the GoFundMe, the original campaign, or the crowdfunding effort that was going on for the Freedom Convoy. It got paused and then unpaused, and then thanks to the lobbying of Ottawa's mayor and their chief of police, they got that effectively shut down. And then GiveSendGo, which markets itself as a Christian crowdfunding effort, which really it doesn't really have much to do with Christianity. In fact, it's just more or less a wide open platform where if you just like to crowdfund for your cause or event, go for it. I think the only thing that they aren't going to allow any sort of crowdfunding, obviously for things that are just patently illegal, obviously they aren't going to allow for the only, well, I guess it's kind of quasi-religious, okay, the crowdfunding for an abortion. That's the only thing that I've heard so far from the CEO saying. Outside of that stuff, and outside of just like patently illegal acts, like if you want to crowdfund sex trafficking, I don't think that they'd allow that, but outside of that, it's just wide open, and they were more than willing to take up the mantle and, well, just get the free publicity from crowdfunding for the Freedom Convoy. I think they got up to, if not approaching, $10 million before it got froze. No, not from any lobbying. No, not from any outside forces, but we can kind of guess because we're going to get some clarification on that shortly. But it was paused by the court, thanks to an injunction. Which court exactly? The Ontario court. Now, do they necessarily have jurisdiction over an American company? No. Basically, what you're dealing with here is the court is acting like your next door neighbor back when you were a child, and they punish you. Okay, it has no jurisdiction. It has no real meaning. Okay, it might be a little bit of an awkward conversation the next time you go outside, but outside of that, they just look like a bunch of just sniveling 12-year-olds. But it's really got no teeth to it until there was a couple of follow-ups on this. So let's just set the stage here. Let's just walk through this on a bit of a timeline before we go through the rest of the stuff that happened over the weekend, because boy oh boy is this thing it's really evolving, and it's evolving in a way that it's producing results, but then it's also, I don't really know, it's going to make people look really ridiculous when we're all said and done. And this week, I don't really know. Does it go through to the weekend again? Highly possible, really. It all depends. It all depends on what's happening with the Trudeau and his feckless government at this point. The government of the province of Ontario in Canada on Thursday successfully sought a court order to freeze the $8 million in funds that came from the Freedom Convoy on the GiveSendGo platform. Okay, yeah, so $10 million Canadian. Okay, that's where I got the 10. The Ontario Superior Court of Justice ordered that all donations made to the Freedom Convoy 2022 and Adopt a Trucker. There was two simultaneous campaigns going on. The one that I was updating you guys on was the Freedom Convoy one, but the Adopt a Trucker one was not officially affiliated with Freedom Convoy, but it was also raising funds for the truckers that were there as well. And I think it might have got close to $1 million. It was pretty close. It was around that 700,000 the last time that I checked in, but that was like Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm not entirely sure. Campaigns on the Christian fundraising platform had been frozen until further notice, according to a statement from Premier Doug Ford's office, who, okay, it was weird because there was an update on him Thursday where I'm announcing a state of emergency, but then I'm also dropping all the restrictions. Why do you need a state of emergency? You're going to see a through line there. But, of course, if it ended there, okay, fine. Okay, does the Ontario Superior Court have jurisdiction on, like I said, an American fundraising campaign? No, of course, because they pointed out, GiveSendGo wrote in an apparent response to the court order, "Know this, Canada has absolutely zero jurisdiction over how we manage our funds here at GiveSendGo. All the funds for every campaign on GiveSendGo flow directly to the recipients of those campaigns, not least of which is the Freedom Convoy campaign." Okay, so that's their statement on it. Okay, apparently Ontario Attorney General Doug Downey cited 490.8 to the Criminal Code as grounds to freeze the funds, saying that the Attorney General may make an application for a restraint order. So it's kind of like the government wants to separate the money from the truckers because they think that it's an offense-related property, and this is something that they could have done from the beginning, okay? The government goes to their enforcement arm and say, hey, we want to do this, and they're like, okay, well, we're basically the same people, so we're just going to go ahead and do this. So, and again, GiveSendGo was just like, hey, fuck you, or whatever the Christian alternative, get stuffed, okay? That's what they were going to do, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're still going to go ahead and we're going to release the funds anyways, because you guys can dance through this dog and pony show, and it doesn't affect us all one bit. It's just the only thing is, it's really tough to disseminate those funds to a bank account that won't accept them, because now, as we've seen before, and something that I've always warned about, okay, it's the fucking banks, dude. Whenever somebody's really getting canceled, not like, ha, I was canceled, which really just means that you get a lot of popularity for the time being. See Joe Rogan, what's going on there with that fucking disaster. Oh, everybody's still clapping for him, but you still apologize, and you look like a bitch. Enjoy the bitch up. But no, people getting deplatformed from their banks, that's a canceling. That's a high-level canceling, and that's what we're seeing here. TD Bank freezes bank accounts connected to Freedom Convoy protest. And this isn't just some kind of, like, local credit union or anything. This isn't like ATB in Alberta or British Columbia Credit Union, okay? This is one of the big banks that's out there, and you guys have probably seen TD before. Like, they're the chief sponsor of several stadiums and arenas, sports arena, entertainment venues across at least Canada. Oh, and yeah, no, they're even the title sponsor of the old Boston Gardens as well. Yeah, so this is a big bank, and they're wading into this because reasons, I guess. TD Bank confirmed that it has frozen 2 bank accounts that held $1.4 million in Canadian currency in deposits that support the trucker-led protests in Canada. Where did they get that money from before? Well, the GoFundMe, okay, the initial crowdfunding campaign, okay, they released a small trickle of funds to begin with, and then after they got froze up, okay, they had to wait for some more funds, and then once they got unfroze, oh, this shit is so ridiculous, can't you believe it? No, and then they got a little bit of a trickle. This was from an interview from Ben Dichter, one of the campaign heads, as it were. That's what he was talking about. And then, yeah, no, this has actually been going on for a little while now, but he just made that public, at least in a couple of the interviews that I've seen him do as well. But yeah, as soon as he got a little trickle of funds, TD locked him down. Now, when you have that much money being transferred, is that standard policy? You'd expect it to take a little bit of time to clear, because that's a massive influx, and they got to be able to filter it and clear whatever you got to do when it comes to the banks. I'm not that fluent in financial literacy, but I know that whenever you got to cash a check or, well, not really cash a check, to make a giant deposit is going to take a few business days, but we're a little bit past that, especially when they come out with these kinds of statements. The Toronto-based financial institution has appealed to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice to obtain the funds. Okay, so they want to seize them. Oh, okay. With the intention of returning the cash to the donors who have requested refunds, but who's entitled to the refund cannot be determined by TD. A spokesperson for the TD short for Toronto Dominion Bank, told the outlet on February 12th. See, yeah, because that's when they got a small dissemination from GoFundMe. This is the Freedom Convoy getting some of the money from the $10 million American. I think it was just about at $11 million, okay? Once they got the, $1.1 million US, okay? They canceled the crowdfunding effort, and then they just started mass returning. But since they delivered some money, they can't necessarily say whose money that is, and if they were going to be refunding everybody from the campaign. See how complicated this gets when this shit gets fucking political? But yeah, that's at least a little bit of a background, okay? One of the bank accounts received a lump sum of $1 million in Canadian currency via the crowdfunding platform GoFundMe, with the rest, about 300,000 Canadian dollars, was sent to a second round through several bank account electronic transfers, a TD spokesperson told Reuters. The spokesperson said the bank doesn't know where the GoFundMe payment originated. Well, wouldn't it have come from GoFundMe? I'm just saying. There are significant questions surrounding the legal basis under which TD Bank seized donation funds and applied to transfer them into court. Yeah, why is TD taking this upon themselves? Okay, listen, if they were just worried about adhering to the Ontario Superior Court, they should have just siphoned it through to the end user and let them fucking bicker it out, okay? That would have been so much easier. But no. They wouldn't let this pass, okay? They didn't want to be seen in any corner of the world as supporting these evil emergency people. I'm not entirely sure what the smear is at this point, but all this stuff has to do with the GoFundMe payment, okay? The two that were made and how that's going to be figured out. But the overarching injunction, okay, the one that froze the GiveSendGo, all of these crowdfunding names are very unnecessarily complicated. If only GoFundMe wasn't queer, we'd just be able to stick with that one. But thanks, yeah, the Ontario Superior Court, okay, them and the Freedom Convoy are going to be meeting in court tomorrow to decide the fate of what's going to be happening and who has jurisdiction over this money, which could be interesting, but more, a little bit of an update on that tomorrow. But I was going to bring up the GiveSendGo and just show you guys what it's at right now. I wanted to see if anybody else was donating to it in the interim, because they seemed like, okay, straight from the mouth of the CEO, we ain't backing down. We're just going to go ahead, and once everybody gets out of the way, we're going to start disseminating the money out there, because they weren't like GoFundMe, where it's like, we're just waiting for an opportunity to play politics, and that would be really great. No, they were standing up. It's like, we are a crowdfunding effort, okay? People wanted to crowdfund for this thing. We have no right to hold on to the money, so here everybody goes. But like I said, I was going to give you guys an update, but it's down. Like, the entire site is down, not just the crowdfunding page, the entire thing. But apparently it looked something like that yesterday, okay? I just looked this morning and it was a 404 page, and today there's just a splash screen with a, we're doing server updates in order to, I don't know, stop these fucking far left doxers who are out there, because that's what happened. Apparently, missed out on that one. A video, video was rolling there as they were doxing donors, and it was happening from far left activists, because as you're going to see here, one side has remained peaceful for going on 3 weeks at this point, and the other just every fucking opportunity, except at the massive crowd that turned out in Ottawa on Saturday, okay? There's always an opportunity to cause chaos, and that's what these fuckers do, okay? The counter-protestors, not the people who actually have a cause, okay? They have remained remarkably level-headed about everything going on. GiveSendGo, a Christian crowdfunding website used by the Freedom Convoy, was hacked a Sunday night and was redirecting to the domain givesendgo.wtf. A video for the song Into the Unknown from Disney film Frozen 2, I think I have AIDS from reading that, was displayed on the site with a manifesto scrolling over a video condemning the website and the Freedom Convoy. Oh, okay, cool. File was also posted, which was allegedly containing tens of thousands of names of donors to the Freedom Convoy. Okay, the fact that it's just names, it's like you can just have a name on the website too, okay, whenever you give a donation, but whatever. I'd imagine it probably had more details than that, but thankfully it's not up anymore. And who the fuck do you think you're helping on this one? Like, well, I guess, okay, based on what's happening today, I guess there can be individual prosecutions for aiding and helping out these evil people, but what if these people donated from foreign countries, which has been happening as well, so again, whatever. On Friday, the Ontario government successfully petitioned the court to freeze access to millions of dollars, and yeah, like I said, we're going to have more of a clarification on that tomorrow. But what about the protests themselves? Okay, there are many border protests going on right now. No update on the Manitoba US one. I would imagine it's probably still going on in some form or fashion. There were some arrests also made at the Alberta Coutts border, okay, Coutts Milk River, I think that's the United States side of it, okay. There were 11 arrests that were made down there for reasons, I guess, I don't really know. But then there was that Windsor Bridge one, okay, the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. It got busted up Sunday, and I don't know why, but there were some military esque police vehicles that were down there, because those goddamn evil truckers that were down there couldn't quite figure out exactly what law they were using on that one, other than just your general mischief or nuisance complaints or our democracy subversion. I don't fucking know. But this one, also important to know, okay, these little pocket protests that are going on at the borders, okay, they might be supporting the Freedom Convoy. They aren't, okay, in any official capacity related with them. So this is just little grassroots protests that are popping up all along the country, just showing you how popular the sentiment is, okay? So if you hear anything from legacy media where it's like, oh, the Alberta or the BC wing of the Freedom Convoy, the Freedom Convoy is specifically what's going on in Ottawa, okay? Don't let that get you twisted, okay? Police made more arrests on February 13th, yes, that was yesterday, to clear a protest blockade at a major Ontario border crossing connecting Windsor to Detroit as U.S. Canada border crossing. Yeah, you'll see here. I seen some aerial footage of this yesterday because I've been, interested, okay? Very well aware that this is a rapidly evolving situation, but doing little updates every single day instead of just waiting for a big batch of stuff is just kind of useless. I don't want to fucking beat the same drum every single day, but when things are evolving like this, you just end up falling behind. So it's just easy to give everybody just kind of a timeline compressed into one video. But I've seen some other things and can't quite pull them up here, but just know that there were more than just one of these SWAT vehicles that were down there, okay? And as you can see, there were probably as many cops at the Ambassador Bridge, just pushing back those evil truckers, okay, just in that shot right there, than you'd probably see throughout all of the Ottawa protests if you've been watching any of the live streams that are down there. But let's get some information on this. The police made arrests on February 12th, detaining a 27-year-old man for a criminal offense in relation to the demonstration. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, he did something criminal by helping out the demonstration. That's not necessarily a crime as far as I know, but you're saying it's a crime. Okay, weird. At the Ambassador Bridge, the international border crossing accounts for $100 million of trade every day. And yeah, it's the most costly border crossing that could be done. And that's probably why they did it. More arrests were made yesterday, Sunday. Police said that they have made more than 25 arrests, mostly on mischief charges. Nice, nebulous mischief charges. What does that mean? You're doing something that could be illegal, could be criminal, that has a potentiality for a criminal offense. So we're just going to go ahead and nip that in the bud beforehand. So that's the quality of policing that's going on there. But it's a state of emergency in Ontario, and that means that we're going to have jurisdiction. It's basically a police state at this point. They have grounds to do anything that they want. They see you helping out any of these demonstrations that's going down there, well, guess what? They can just go ahead, slap a charge on you, arrest you, and just throw you in the clink. Different police forces, including Windsor Police, Ontario Provincial Police, RCMP, and other regional forces came to the site February 12th. Police were heavily armed and with armored vehicles and police cruisers at the site. Most large trucks left, during the initial dispersion on February 12th, and police pushed away the protesters on the main road leading to the international bridge. Police have now set up barricades on the road. So, okay, instead of just having trucks on the road, now I have barricades on the road. Got it. But it's cleaned out now because nobody's there. So apparently it's back open. So I guess that's a little bit of a win for the Ontario government. So now what are they going to do with that? Well, you think that they'd go after the counter-protestors who were acting like assholes in Ottawa. Like, okay, if you're looking for people actually causing mischief, or, you know what, actually more likely to be committing crimes, okay? You go after the counter-protesters, which, again, if you listen to any of these people, it's either, we feel scared by the truckers that are down there. Well, are they doing anything to you? Well, we feel scared. Oh, okay, cool. So that's the extent of your argument. We got it. Other than, govern us harder, daddy. Other than that, they don't really have any sort of programming beyond that. They're really just real-life NPCs. That's what I thought before all of this stuff. That's kind of what I was thinking Canada had descended into. But thanks to these past 3 weeks, I've really been energized by what I've been seeing out there. Hopefully you guys are as well. Some Ottawa residents held a counter-protest against the Freedom Convoy on February 13th. Oh, okay, so they weren't down there on Saturday when it was huge. And I think probably like tens of thousands of people were down there. Like, that's not a lie. That's we got some photos coming up, and I might as well just show you guys right now because Jesus Christ, there were a lot of fucking people. Like, that's one of the main intersections there, and that doesn't even come close to doing it justice. And there was no proper head count, and it was easily, okay, it was the coldest day that the protesters had to endure since everything's been set up over the course of 3 weeks. Like, it was snowing, it was blowing, and it was about the air temperature, I think it was about minus 14, okay? And then with the wind, it was without a doubt about 20 below. But when there's that many people and there's that many good vibes going on, I don't think you care that much. And again, this is all about stopping mandates, okay? It's not about any of these fringe conspiracy theorists that certain things don't exist or that there's poison in syringes and all that kind of fucked shit, okay? All this shit is real. All this shit is serious, and you need to go ahead and you need to take care of your own personal health. But again, this is about repealing the mandates. Nobody has a right to tell you what you have to do with your body, okay? First and foremost, that's what these people want rolled back, okay? It's not about overthrowing my government because Jagmeet Singh said that and then it was repeated by the media. Therefore, the activist politicians can go ahead and repeat something that another activist has said. This is literally fake news in real time, okay? One asshole purposefully, or you know what, hey, might have heard something as well, but he repeats a lie, and then it gets repeated by somebody else with a bigger megaphone in order to accentuate the lie, smear a bunch of people, and then it gets repeated ad nauseum. You remember my Confederate flag, my swastika flag? Remember how that happened once on the first day? And again, I show you guys these pictures all the fucking time, and all you see are just happy people blowing horns, little plastic ones, okay? Because there's no air horns that are allowed. Air horns or train horns. Outside of that, you know, you can't really outlaw just honking a horn because you're trying to also avoid collisions and shit. So that was the extent of the injunction, by the way, which is also going to be up within a couple of days. So things could get maybe a little bit louder than anticipated. But as you can see, yeah, there were some police down there, but a couple of the live streamers I was watching as well were also talking to the police, and they just were like, wow, there's a lot of people here, and no, I haven't seen anything gone on. So they seemed like they were happy. They seemed like they were not necessarily on high alert or anything like that, because they've seen this shit for 3 fucking weeks and nothing has happened. The streets are clear. The roads are, other than being full of trucks, completely swept. Garbage is gone. Crime is at the lowest point that it's been in forever, and the only thing that's there is just a bunch of people, okay? You have veterans down at the war memorial keeping it clean, keeping the streets shoveled, keeping the ice away from the memorials. You talk to the people who are actually down there and the residents from Ottawa who come into the area, and they say this is the best that the city has been in forever. So you can go ahead and you can listen to the people who are actually down there, or you can listen to mainstream, well, not even mainstream media, because you take in totality the coverage of the events from the live streamers that are down there and from the people, once again, disseminating the information from the people that are on the street. And what do you end up getting? Well, you get a bigger reach than the CBC, than CTV. They can go ahead and repeat their little 3-minute, 90-second little just hits on white supremacy and the insurrectionists and the takeover of Ottawa, whatever the fuck they're talking about. I don't care, because they're fucking irrelevant, okay? They'll get a third of what the entire coverage of what's going on YouTube and Rumble and the different places that are out there, obviously. But yeah, no, the counter-protesters that were down there apparently on Sunday, okay, once the crowd just kind of calmed down, because like the second Saturday that was out there when there was the big counter-protest at City Hall, which again looked as astroturf as the fucking Pontiac Silverdome, there was nobody down there because it was cold and these people are fucking wimps, okay? Some Ottawa residents held a counter-protest against the Freedom Convoy on February 13th, trapping 20 target vehicles belonging to pro-trucker convoy protests on a road, saying they want protesters who have gridlocked the city's downtown. You can still move freely because there's always a free lane or two on every road that's down there, except for the one, I forget the name of it, starts with a W, Windsor or Winfred, whatever, something like that, right in front of Parliament Hill. Outside of that, Every other road is open, so I don't know what you're talking about. But again, it's just the fucking lackadaisical information spread. Trucker protests are part of a larger movement against government's COVID-19 mandates and restrictions, which more cities around the world continue to drop. Cities and countries and states and provinces continue to drop the fucking mandates because they're unnecessary, okay? Have they always been unnecessary? Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to say, taking into account your own personal protection, that's up for you to decide, okay? If you want to take the vaccine, go for it. Nobody's got a problem with that. And if you do, then you've probably been reading too much on different fucking tinfoil hat websites. Okay, fine. With all that said, do your own research. It's your own fucking decision, obviously. I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm not doing, and I know what I'm not doing, even if I'm being told by the government to do it, which is seeming less and less likely every single fucking day, thanks to the brave acts of these people, okay? Not the counter-protestors that are out there, but the protesters, thanks to them, thanks to their courage, tenacity, and mild-mannered approach to all of this. According to the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, the counter-protesters began on February 12th with a demonstration by hundreds of people marching through Ottawa's suburb in Glebe. Hundreds of people, huh? Wow. On a 20 below day when, okay, at the protest proper, they were nowhere to be found. But again, they're going through a suburb, okay? A place where the protest proper isn't going on. And whenever you hear these accounts of, oh, the truckers and the evil protesters, they're out there and they're assaulting the outlying neighborhoods. Where are the counter-protesters happening? Where are they always congregating? Food for thought, my friends. The action resumed at 9 a.m. on February 13th as a reported group of 20 people blocked a major intersection in an attempt to stop moving vehicles driving through the government offices at the city center. By noon, there were about 200 people involved in the blockade, about 5 miles from Parliament Hill, the CBC reported. It's funny how they're down there reporting that specifically, but what else, though? But they were all people from the area, though. No, yeah, 100%. They're the most affected, of course. Drivers and passenger of the pro-truck protest vehicles stayed calm during the confrontation. That's literally their MO, okay? Like, basically, if you were to describe one of the pro-Freedom Convoy truckers, one of them protesters, if you were to build one of them, not specifically what they look like, because what CBC would report them as was just, oh, they're just a bunch of angry white people. How do you explain the person who's walking around with a trans flag on their back? How would you explain the people from Haiti, the people from Romania, the truckers from Alberta, the truckers from Quebec, the people that live in the area of Ottawa, all down there supporting the Freedom Convoy? How would you say that they're white supremacists, bigots, terrorists, whatever the fuck you want to call them? Oh, it's because you don't need to be intellectually honest, because the federal government's going to pay you anyways. People walked past the vehicles pushing signs and placards towards the passengers to make sure that they could read the messages. I'm sure they just simply pushed them and didn't smack them against their windows. I'm sure that was the case. They included no hatred in our streets. Then you should probably leave, though. Please fuck off. Really kind of contradicts the first message you're trying to say. Okay, grow up. Likewise, take your own advice. Inaction against bullies equals tolerance. What? Enough is enough. End the siege. What siege? Village, call your idiots home. Oh, very clever. What are you, a fucking Facebook mom? Freedom from convoy bullies. You can't mask ignorance. Believe science. No honks, no hate. Illegal occupation. Truck off. Freedom convoy. There's a lady who has that. She's very brave because she's wearing a mask outside. And to be fair, she has all of those toys probably for those children that she's never ever going to have. That's why the decorations are in such pristine shape. You fucking empty egg carton. As you can see, just from the still frame here, she obviously, you can literally smell the cat piss from the picture. But she's the one who looks very, very angry with the finger pointed at the ground, yelling at a vehicle, because that's what sane people do. And then the other ones that are inside, either just the guy in the back seat staring straight forward, the woman in the passenger seat just looking, being like, can we just move? Because this lady's insane. And then the guy who's driving, yeah, sure. But yeah, that's the quality of counter-protester you get out there. Weirdos wearing masks outside, old ladies yelling, and confrontations happening because of Of course they are, because they don't know what they stand for. All they know is that other people across the aisle, they're bad and they should be taken down because they're my democracy or some shit like that. But what's that hot new development today? Trudeau's invoking the Emergencies Act, okay, today. That just went down probably not that long after I put this up anyways, but what does that exactly mean? And, well, realistically, that just gives him more power, which I can't believe it took him this long to do it. But he's also not calling in the military right now. He's just gonna, what, pretend to send in his militarized police service? I'm not entirely sure at this point, because why? Again, like, what's the reports? Like, what are the truckers actually doing? What are the protesters actually doing? Making the streets safer, cleaning them up, adhering to the injunction of not honking for the past 10 days, like being law-abiding citizens, peacefully protesting, being the exemplars of peaceful protesting. No, they're evil. But this is going to spell the end of him. Absolutely 100%. So let's just glean through this. At least 4 Canadian provincial premiers are slamming. Well, it's kind of redundant to have provincial premiers, but whatever. Are slamming Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's plan to invoke the country's Emergencies Act, which grants power, that has only been used once before in peacetime. Guess who used it? If you couldn't tell by the headlines, it runs in the family. Or at least by the stepfather. In a federal crackdown on Freedom Convoy demonstrators. All right. Trudeau plans to address the nation at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, at which time he's expected to invoke the rarely used emergency powers to tackle protesters over vaccine mandates and restrictions. Although protesters have been cleared from the Key Ambassador Bridge, where about 30 protesters were arrested on Sunday, large demonstrations continue to paralyze the streets of Ottawa. Again, just watch the coverage, but whatever. And protesters are blocking several border crossings in Western Canada, all the way up through Central Canada as well, because I don't know if you're necessarily well aware of what the geography of Canada is. Manitoba, I wouldn't put it out west. It's always lumped into being the west, but it's about as central as you can possibly get. There's a blockade in BC, in Alberta. Don't know if it's still there, don't know if it's still going on, but it'll probably just rise up again if all of this stuff is still going on by the weekend. Hopefully not. Hopefully this asshole just realizes he's definitely on the fucking wrong side of this, but whatever. But you think by calling in the SWAT teams on legitimate peaceful protesters on a bridge at the border crossing, if you think that looks good for you, sorry about that. Like Trump wouldn't do, okay? Just going back a couple of years' time during the summer of love in 2020, okay? Remember when Portland was on fire for 100 straight days, okay? Remember when there was a few businesses burning down in Minneapolis? A few is a bit underselling the fact, but remember how many times Trump called for the Emergencies Act or called in the National Guard in order to clear those places out, usurping the authority of the different governors that were out there? Remember how many times he did that? Yeah. Exactly. But no, because a bunch of hillbillies from out west are just parked their trucks in front of his office, that's cause enough for him to invoke the Emergencies Act. So, one of the blockades in Alberta, Canadian Mounties on Monday arrested 11 people and seized a cache of guns, body armor, high-capacity magazines. I'm glad that they got all of that stuff and they put it out there in order to justify their arrests, which, I don't know, man. It seems a little bit sketchy, but whatever. And a machete in connection to what said was a plot to use force against police if they attempted to disperse the protest. That's why they went along peacefully. Okay. On Monday morning, Trudeau held meetings with his Liberal caucus and and the premiers of the nation's provinces, who are the Canadian equivalent of state governors, in case you didn't know. Okay, so cool. So he met with, at least by teleconference, with all of these elected officials, and that's why 4 of them are like, don't do this because you're stupid. And he's like, I'm going to do it anyways. Okay. Following the meetings, the provincial premiers of Alberta, Manitoba, Quebec, and Saskatchewan spoke out opposing Trudeau's extraordinary plan. We have the legal powers that we need. We have the operational resources that we need to enforce. And I think at this point, the federal government to reach over top of us without offering anything in particular would frankly be unhelpful. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney, who's grappling with the border blockade and Couts. Oh, but we found all this stuff down there. That's why I haven't heard him really talk about it specifically. But whatever, he could have. I could have just been missing it. It just seems a little too convenient. And he's not even calling for additional help. I'm concerned that this certain kind of person that the federal government proceeds with this, who will be further inflamed, and that could lead to the prolongation. Okay. of some of the protests, Manitoba Premier Heather Stevenson, also called the border blockade ongoing in her province, likewise slammed Trudeau's plan as not helpful. Scott Moe, because, yeah, of course, he's been on the level at the same time. He tweeted out that illegal blockades must end. Yes, any of them that are illegal should end. It's just they aren't. You're having a tough time. You're having to make up laws on the fly and enact wartime measures in order to find sort of justification to lock up and intimidate the protesters. But police have sufficient tools to enforce the law and clear the blockades, as they did over the weekend in Windsor. Therefore, Saskatchewan does not support the Trudeau's government invoking of the Emergencies Act. And then, yeah, the Premier of Quebec, who, if you remember, had for the longest time, I'm not too sure if it's still in place, a curfew in place for the entirety of the province. He was going to tax unvaccinated people, and he's saying that that's too much of a power flex. You're losing it, dude. You really are. Okay, so what do we got? Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is reportedly planning to invoke the rarely used 1988 Emergencies Act, which would allow the federal government to override the provinces and restrict the movement of people and goods. That's what he was trying to do anyways. Now he's just using a different act, which I don't know, man. This is not going to look good on you. The Emergencies Act would allow federal government to impose special temporary measures to ensure security during national emergencies anywhere in the country. So by invoking the Emergencies Act, you just call a state of emergency, and therefore you can restrict the movement of everybody in the country because you're a fucking bitch. The legislation essentially grants Ottawa carte blanche to do anything it deems necessary to respond to an emergency. And you take a look at the different places that have called either state of emergency provincially, or the fact that Justin Trudeau has an ongoing state of emergency thanks to his COOF response on things. Powers it grants includes the ability to restrict travel, which the vaccine mandates were going to anyways, seize property, alright, prohibit public assembly, and assume control of public services such as police forces. So, federalize the police force and then just start stealing stuff because emergency. The law defines a national emergency as a temporary, where have we heard this before? Government and temporary. The past 2 years kind of harkens back to some darker times. Urgent and critical situation that seriously endangers the lives, health, or safety of Canadians and is of such proportions of nature as to exceed the capacity or authority a province to deal with it. That's why 4 premiers are like, you're being retarded, and they're like, okay. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and do this. The legislation, previously known as the War Measures Act, hasn't changed, just got updated with a new name, has been used only 3 times in Canadians' history, 2 during World Wars and in the 1970s by Trudeau's father, this fucking commie piece of shit, Pierre Trudeau, after militant Quebec separatists kidnapped a British diplomat and a provincial cabinet minister. Yeah, that was a thing back in the day. Kind of a big national crisis. Wasn't really justification to invoke the Emergencies Act in Canada, but Pierre tried to do a lot of the stuff his son has such accomplished by federalizing everything and making himself the dictator of Canada. Why did you ever think another Trudeau would be the right fucking decision, you Eastern cunts? But all this saber rattling, it's like, listen, we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna chill out until all this stuff is done. And all this stuff is gone because we're on the right side of this. You keep escalating the stuff with your talk, Trudeau, and you're going to look like the idiot at the end of this. You're going to be the one left holding the bag. Truckers to Trudeau, we will hold the line despite the Emergencies Act. Freedom Convoy organizer Tamara Lynch had a message for Justin Trudeau after the reports the Prime Minister would be invoking the Emergencies Act. We will hold the line. Lynch said the protesters would remain peaceful and planted at Parliament till the mandates are removed. Yep. Because, we're going to seize the trucks and we're going to remove them. Who are you going to get to do that, by the way? Which tow truck companies are you going to get to call in? The ones who still wouldn't remove the trucks that are down there? Okay. Restrict travel. Oh, okay, cool. So you're just going to go ahead and enshrine the protests that are down there? Okay. Make sure that they can't move so that they're going to be staying there for good? Okay, big flex. And once again, this came out before he invoked his Emergencies Act for reasons unbeknown to everyone else, but Trudeau tanks in the polls with both supporters and opponents of Freedom Convoy. Yeah, okay, he's either been hiding, he's either been mischaracterizing and smearing, or he's just been outright lying in order to seize more power. I don't know what's going on. Far-left Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is facing a popularity collapse. Several polls published this weekend found in the aftermath of his handling of the ongoing Freedom Convoy anti-mandate protests with both supporters and opponents of the protesters. That's impressive because either I can imagine the opponents of the protesters, they just want him to step on their necks harder, okay? Or maybe there's some reasonable ones that are out there. It's like probably calling in the military or, you know what, tear gassing legitimately peaceful protesters. Yeah, I don't like the honking or anything like that. But escalating the situation on your end without just going out there and meeting with them, which again, no politician has since gone out there to talk with any of the supporters in public, which is just a big fucking fail on their behalf. But these are cucked conservatives in Ottawa. Okay, one is out, but there's still hundreds that are down there. Trudeau has branded the thousands participating in the trucker-led protest nationwide as a few people shouting and waving swastikas, that it's a fringe minority of people with unacceptable values, and described them as wearing tinfoil hats. No, you're gonna need, it's been cold there the past, well, on and off for the past 3 weeks, so it's not tinfoil, it's fleece-lined hats. Come on now, get it right. He has refused to engage in any discussion with those supporting a full repeal of the civil rights violation in the name of containing the COOF, and rejected calls from members of a variety of political parties, including his own in the country, to appeal to unity and dialogue to resolve the protests. Nope, just label them all Nazis and then just use tanks to clear them out, just like Nazis. Get to the polls. The polling firm Maru Group, I'm not familiar, sorry, found in a poll published Monday that nearly half of Canadians, 48%, believe Trudeau is not up for the job of being Prime Minister. If you would have just sampled Westerners, even 2 years ago at this point, those numbers wouldn't have changed, by the way. Only 35% say that he is. Wow, those are Biden-esque numbers. The protests appear to be clearly to blame. Only 16% said that Trudeau's handling of the Freedom Convoy made them want to vote for him. 16% also smell like cat piss, compared to 63% actively discouraged to do so by handling of the situation. A majority, 53%, believe that Trudeau has not acted in a way befitting a prime minister in the face of the protests. Yep, by ignoring them. When everybody realizes that, yeah, there's a protest out there, okay, there is a big protest that's out there, and what exactly are they about? Depends on what you're listening to. It seems pretty sensible. The numbers are not an indication of any widespread support for the protest. On the contrary, the respondents' distaste for Trudeau appears to be coming from disagreement with the protests, and makes sense that the protesters are winning while Trudeau fails to act, making him appear weak. Yep. Hiding away in a bunker doesn't make you seem like you have the strongest of stance, by the way. And just name calling, it never comes off as good, okay? Unless you're funny about it, unless you're witty about it. Just saying, you're all white supremacists, it doesn't come off good. It's never won anybody anything. A higher number, 64%, said that they consider the protesters a threat to democracy. And the same number supporting using the Canadian Armed Forces to clear out the trucks. Yet, over half in the Monday survey, 53% of respondents said that Trudeau looked weak when facing the Freedom Convoy. When has he exactly done that? Compared to 17% who said yes when he asked if he looked strong. Okay. In his attempt to stop the protests, the number 44% said that they believe Trudeau had personally worsened the situation. Both polls were conducted from February 9th through 10th. Yeah, during the big lull that was going on at the time. But again, fuck, I want to try to keep these updates short, but there's just so much shit going on at all times. So tomorrow, I guess we're probably going to see what the effects of this Emergency Act is going to be when everything's all said and done, okay? Unless, you know, like, there's blood running through the streets. We'll probably just chill out until tomorrow, and then what happens with the money as well, because there's supposed to be a court hearing on that, and we'll see what goes on with the injunction. But we're still about, I think, Wednesday or Thursday, they're allowed to start honking again. So if you're still going to be in the place, I'd imagine probably going to be firing up those horns between 8 and 8, because, you know, that's normally what an insurrection or a takeover of a city does. They just, you know, adhere to decency laws. Whatever. What do I know? I just watch this shit. Now we're going to get awfully American on this one. We got two converging things going on right now of one not getting covered and another one getting far too much coverage right now. It's just, both are absurd on the face of it, but they involve Democrats, so I know I'm going to get 2 views on those videos, but fuck it, it's important, and I'm at my wit's end when it comes to a bunch of shit. So if you'd like to stay tuned for that, give me a couple of minutes. It's going to be a second. With that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.